Hansik on TikTok. As we pass our 1-year anniversary of quarantine lockdown, it's clear that despite the circumstances, the Korean wave has only grown in size. Unlike, say, the global economy or the restaurants and businesses across the country that are struggling to stay afloat, the Korean wave, or Hallyu, has managed to use social media to spread its influence, with the effort propelled even further by a lockdown that has forced many to spend more of their time online. TikTok, as what is arguably the video sharing platform of 2020, has seen massive growth in quarantine, and its growth has in turn propelled the spread of one of the most universal cultural forms of Hallyu, food. While certain parts of the Korean wave like K-pop appeal to a small subset of musicgoers, food is universal, and Korean food in particular has found incredible success on TikTok. Several dishes have become viral sensations and garnered attention from all over the world, most of which only became popular in quarantine. The most notable of these trends is dalgona coffee, a whipped coffee reportedly named by actor Jung Il-woo after a similar South Korean candy. The drink first became viral on TikTok in the first months of quarantine, with millions upon millions of users making their own videos, news outlets reporting on the dalgona coffee craze, and Starbucks themselves coming out with their own dalgona coffee recipe. It became so big that to many, dalgona coffee is reminiscent of what is now referred to as early quarantine. Other Korean foods that have gone viral on the app are Korean hot dogs, a popular Korean street food that is battered and deep fried with many different variations, and toshirak cakes, or more commonly known as Korean lunchbox cakes. Thus far, the foods that have gone viral are usually aesthetically pleasing or entertaining to watch, as TikTok as a platform is based so heavily on visual appeal. But Korean food, or Hansik as a whole, has become increasingly trendy on TikTok. As consumers on a global scale become more and more familiar with various Korean foods and artifacts of Hansik culture, Korean food content will only continue to increase. These were only a few examples of a much broader movement featuring what is essentially the commodification of Korean food. It's worth noting that Korean food has a particular hold on TikTok's audience. As of March 2021, Mediterranean Foods hashtag had 7.5 million views, American food had 86 million, and Japanese at a little over 700 million. Chinese food stood at 1.4 billion views, Mexican at 1.5 billion, while Korean food loomed at 2 billion. As more and more Korean foods go viral, and as users like Chef Chris Cho, the Korean vegan, and Cafe Maddie, whose entire TikTok profiles are centered around Korean food, grow in popularity, the globalization of Korean food feels inevitable. With its adaptability at using social media to its advantage, Hallyu's globalization is hardly preventable.